Welcome back. Episode 9, Life in Abundance. Buckle up because I know my purpose and I am going to live it. But before we get started, if you're on YouTube, hit subscribe button down there. That will help us out. And if you're listening to this on the podcast, give us a 5-star like and leave a nice comment.
Yeah, baby.
Yep. And we appreciate it. Mm-hmm. But so today we're going to be going over, we went to an experience last week down in Dana Point, and it was pretty amazing. It's 4 days down there, and probably changed our trajectory of where we're going in life, would you say?
Yeah, it just put a big old on our plans, which I kind of felt like we saw coming in some way. We've been feeling this pressure of this change about to happen for us for at least the last year, but pretty heavily in the last 2 months. And I just feel like that has, a lot of things have led up to this, the anticipation of this happening. And it was very clear to us in this class that this is what God's been preparing our heart for. And I know we talk about not drinking as such a chore or something like that, but we really just made that commitment to, stop doing that completely in our life. And
wait, how do you feel about not drinking? Because I'm ready to absolutely kill someone when I go to a restaurant. Like, I am like, what are we doing here? This is stupid. Like, I can make this at home.
Because we used to go to restaurants just to have a nice drink.
Yeah, I hang out. I'm like, I don't want to hang out anymore. I don't even care about this place. And it's like we were at a restaurant that we always go to, and we're on date night, and I'm sitting at the bar, and lady comes up, and I'm like, yeah, I'll just do a water. Okay, cool, 2 waters. And then she makes like 2 laps around the bar, pouring cocktails, and I'm like, I'm going to absolutely lose my stuff right now.
Because of your service, you mean?
Yeah. Just give me my freaking waters. So then I ordered sparkling water, right, thinking she would get me that, because whatever. But I'm doing okay. We went
out like 3 times since we have not been drinking.
6 times.
Okay.
And last time was a nail in the coffin. We went to this steakhouse Bree likes, overpriced to me. It was like $160 for 3. We got an appetizer. I got a steak, no side, just a steak. And you got like a steak with some mashed potatoes. It was like $160. I'm like, I'm not doing this. It's stupid.
I know, because Mark does make a really mean filet for me, which is nice. I don't know if you know this, but I don't cook anything.
Funny story about cooking, Bree. I come into the house one day. I don't know what I was doing, and come in, and Bree's on her knees where the oven is. We have a double oven, and I said, "What are you doing?" She goes, "It's not turning on." I said, "What's not turning on?" She goes, "The oven." I'm like, "Well, do you have the right knob on?"
She's like,
"I'm not." She's like, "I'm not dumb."
Stupid.
And I look over and I go, "Well, you have the griddle on top."
I knew something was on because it was hot.
Yeah.
Well, we've never used that. I didn't even know that was a griddle. I thought it was like an island in the middle of your stove. I mean, it's not something I would ever use, but...
So, needless to say, she didn't turn the oven on. Then one time she was making noodles.
All right, can we move on?
This is the last one. Takes 2 seconds.
This is not necessary.
Noodles. And she burnt the bag because, that she poured it in, the bag got thing and burnt, and she blamed the bag on it. She's like, "Why does the bag do that?" I'm like, "Well, you're not supposed to put the bag up to the flame."
I just didn't know it was going to melt like that fast just while I'm pouring it in there. It's like a 2-second. I thought it'd be
So needless to say, Bree does not cook, and if we don't want her to cook because something will probably happen to the house that will cost me more money to fix. So we're just not going there.
Hey, look, it's not that I can't cook. I choose not to cook. When you stand all day, the last thing you want to do is come home and stand more. So I'd rather pay somebody to cook. In this case, I don't have to pay you because you live here. I would just DoorDash every night. But that's saving you money by cooking. So you're welcome.
If you ever DoorDash.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, we kind of went off on tangent. But I feel like that was important. I feel like we needed to get that out. That you don't cook.
And I'm fine with it. Yeah. It sounds like that's a you problem.
That's true.
Anyways, going back to our purpose, we really have been in a place where we've operated so comfortably in our businesses. And yeah, there were times where we were going to, make a big jump from, like the salon space from one single space to now adding an additional space, or remodeling at an inconvenient time, or having a baby while we remodeled, or whatever. We did things to stretch us and to grow, but really To put things into perspective for us, we just had to stop, acknowledge what we're doing, what we want, look at the facts of everything in our life to know what we wanted to move forward. And that's hard for people to do because we realized in this class more than ever that we are all big fat liars.
Mm-hmm. And it was funny enough, we went to the class on to teach like the tools that he invented, and we're going to teach them to people. And it was more of the class of like, hey, you need to stop lying and live the life if you're going to teach people. And
which we thought we were.
Yeah, I thought we were, right? And so for me, I've done a 180, and Bree's always pretty much lived, a straight line. And second day, we were sitting there, and Bree and I were back at the hotel. And the second day was just kind of a lot to take in. You were there from 9 to 6. You had a bunch of, it was pretty intense as far as emotions and those kind of things. And second day, I kind of found myself like, well, not put myself out there because of my insecurities. And for those of you who don't know, on the podcast, I stutter. And so doing this podcast, doing speaking engagements, doing things where you talk to people a lot, I get nervous because I stutter. And I was sitting back at the hotel, and I felt like, well, God's calling me to do this coaching thing, but my stuttering, I was making all these excuses. And we're having dinner on the patio, and the pool's maybe like 10 yards away from me, and they got like a little kid area, babe, right? Like it's got some water coming out of the ground.
Yeah, it's like a splash pad where they have like water fountains shooting out of the ground, like kind of like squishy ground. I don't know what you call it. But anyways, it's for like a kid's area. Yeah,
and so it was about 7 o'clock at night. There wasn't many people at the pool, and this kid comes out. He's like 4th, 5th grade, and he's in a wheelchair. And this kid is just hammering through the water thing. He is having the best day of his life. He's getting water dumped on his head. He's just having the time of his life by himself.
He was free.
Yeah, and he pulls up to the pool, and he just like flops in. I'm watching this thing eat. I'm like, what is going on right now?
Yeah.
And he's just having the best time, and we ended up going over to the pool, and he had a football, and he's like treading the water, and I'm throwing him passes, and I was like, oh my gosh, like here I am, Mark Gentry, like afraid of stuttering, afraid of what people thinking, afraid to take my shirt off at the pool, like all these stupid things, right? And this kid is having the time of his life. We'll never get to experience running. We'll never get to experience, going upstairs, like all those things, right? Like all the little things that I take for granted. Mm-hmm. And I'm being held back because of my insecurity, which is really dumb, honestly. And it's been like that my whole life. And so I feel I kind of was like, wow, that was kind of hit me. And so next day we're in class, and my wife said something. I forgot. Do you remember what you said? I forgot what we were talking about.
I don't know. You keep going back to that. I feel like everything was a blur after the next few hours.
And so I raised my hand, and there's about 30 people in the class and 70 online. And I just kind of told them the story, what I just told you guys about the kid in the wheelchair and me stuttering. And our instructor, Garrett, if you know him, he's about 6'1", tatted, lean, and he cusses a lot. But it's weird. He cusses like with a godly heart. It's kind of interesting. And so he tells me, well, get up on stage. So he gives me the mic and goes to the back of the room, and he asks me why I joined Wake Up Warrior. It's the men's coaching class I do. It goes over body, being, balance, business, and having everything in abundance. And so I'll tell you guys a little bit about, which I told you in the podcast before, but I'll go back over it. In 2019, I joined Wake Up Warrior, or excuse me, 2021, I joined Wake Up Warrior. In 2019, we bought the house we're in now, and my wife had our second child, Selah McCoy.
Mm-hmm. She's pretty cool.
About to cry. And bought the house, had our second, and if those of you who know Bree, she has more thrill of going in debt and trying to figure out how to get out of it than anybody I've ever met in my life. And so we got into this house. We live with my mom and my brother in her house, and my mom's got about a 1,500 square foot house. And it was all four of us, plus my mom and my brother, and it was a lot. And I was drinking too much. I was going to the grocery store and stopping at a bar here in town, having 4 or 5 drinks, coming back, looking at porn, doing all these things. And
it was the pit.
Yeah, the pit. And so my wife bought the house. We were over budget by 100-something thousand.
I like to call it that, actually, and not in debt. We
Yeah,
went
we're in
over
the
budget.
pit. And then this guy, Garrett, who's our coach, he's also a hair consultation thing. And he said, well, you need to redo your whole salon. And so we were already there. That we took another $30,000 to do the salon, all these things, right? And my wife goes, well, I'm moving in the house with you or without you. And so that was in early 2020. And then we got
I
done.
offered you an invitation. That sounded harsh.
Yeah. But that was pretty much what it was.
I used other harsh words, but I said, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And you're invited to come with me, but you're not going to come like that.
Yeah. And so I came.
Good choice. Good choice, big boy.
I came, but not doing what I should. And so we got done with the salon in March of like literally earlier March, next day COVID. And then my gym I work at closed down, salon shut down. And a couple weeks later, we had 18 stylists at the time, roughly 20, and 18 left, like within 2 days. Mm-hmm. They didn't like where the salon was going, all that stuff. And so we had 2 hairdressers that were left. And I am losing my mind. And I'm just getting deeper in my pit. And so 2021, that was 20. So it took me about a year. I applied for Wake Up Warrior about 10 times. I finally applied. And
committed.
I finally committed. And I got into it. And I paid like the lower entry, which was $10,000, which to me is a lot of money. But to them, they're like, hey, you figure it out. And then when you figure out, then you can pay us more money and we can really get to work. So they gave me all the stuff and I kind of did it, didn't really do it. And what was crazy about it is I made a change about a year ago and I said, well, no one's coming to save me, so I might as well try it out myself. And so I went in, body, being, balance business, and I did things every single day to make my life in abundance. And so I'm telling the story on stage, and Garrett comes up to me and he goes, well, what has God called you to do? And I said, well, God's calling me to go into coaching. Like I need to align men in their body, being, balance, and business with purpose from their outside in. And he goes, okay. And he goes, how much money do you think you can make in the next 5 months? And he already has told Bree and I that if we do this right in the month of December, we could do like $500,000 in coaching. I'm like, oh my gosh, So he's like, well, you know what? Don't answer this. Go outside because I don't want you to answer it wrong. So he puts me in timeout outside, right, babe?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So he puts me in timeout. I come back in. And standing on stage. And he goes, well, what do you think? And I said, I don't know, came with this number. And I said, $500,000 in the next 5 months. So $100,000 a month. He goes, okay. So he writes on the board. And he goes, do you believe you can do that? And I'm looking at him like, oh man, like I have no idea, but I better say yes. So I said, yeah. Then he goes, this is what killed me. He's like, tell your wife that. And Bree's sitting in the back of the class, in the back row.
Just bawling my eyes out, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh God.
And so I told my wife, I said, this is what I'm going to do. And all that. And it's funny is the last couple of months, my wife's been in a class with this guy, Garrett, for hair. And Garrett's been trying to like get her to bend a little bit. He's like, you're too perfect. You're too intimidating. You got to show everyone you, right? Because if you want to lead people, they got to know that you have flaws. They got to know that you're not perfect. And so I'm sitting up there bawling. And he calls Bree up. And we sit across from each other and Garrett goes, well, Bree, what do you want to tell Mark? And we're sitting face to face, and there's 30 people to my left and about 70 on Zoom. And she's like, I hate you, Garrett. And he's like, I know. And he's like, tell Mark what you're feeling. Tell Mark where you're at. So do you want to tell them or do you want me to go?
I feel like you got this down.
So Bree just said, I'm tired. I'm tired of being the shield. I'm tired of doing everything. And what's funny about that is, I haven't told you this, but I pride myself on doing everything. Like I do the laundry, I do the cooking, I get the girls showered, I do all that stuff, right? And what's funny is I always thought like, hey, see, like I'm gonna make it easier for Bree. I'm gonna make it easier for Bree because Bree works so much. Bree does all this, right? But what I was doing was I was making you more resentful and more angry.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it was kind of a surreal moment. So I, back to on stage, we're sitting there and Bree's telling me all this and just bawling. And I'm crying. So Garrett goes, Mark, what do you hear from Bree? And I said, well, I hear her. I understand her. I see her. I see she's tired. I see she's worn out. I mean, she birthed 3 humans. You know, she's breastfeeding one. She's doing all these things and running clients, and it's amazing. And he goes, well, like, what are you hearing? And I said, well, I need to rise. God's calling me to rise, and I need to do that. And he goes, what'd you say? And I said, God's calling me to rise. And he said, stand up. So I stand up, and he said, face the audience. I face the audience. He goes, close your eyes. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I've seen this before. Like I've seen it happen before. I'm like, some weird shit happens, right? And so I close my eyes, and he goes like, what do you need to do? And he's in the back of the class, and I said, rise. And he said, what do you need to do? And I said, rise. And he keeps getting louder.
He says, say it.
Yeah, say it. And I'm like, rise. And I keep getting louder. And he says it again, and I say, excuse my language if they're kids, but I'm like, fucking rise. And I start crying, and I get this emotion come over me. And he gets louder, and then I say the same thing. I'm like, fucking rise, but I'm yelling it. But then I get this wave of like, it's like I'm in battle. It's like I'm a fighter. Like I would like kill someone right then. And he does a couple more times, and he's like, open your eyes. And I just like look up, and this audience is looking at me like wide-eyed.
What just happened?
What has happened? Bree's bawling, and Bree does not like when I yell. Correct?
No, I have major PTSD from Mark yelling, because the old Mark didn't know how to handle his emotions. The old Mark would get angry and rage.
Yeah.
But the new Mark, he's different.
Yeah. So that happened, and then he's like, sit back down, face your wife. And at this point, I'm like, we're getting punked. Like we're literally like, Bree's bawling, I'm crying, and he goes,
we paid all this money for this to happen to us.
We paid money to coaching, but we're getting therapy. And so he goes, repeat after me. I, Mark, am not going to talk about it anymore, but I'm going to show you. Mm-hmm. And he said, you guys been through a lot. Go ahead and go in the office. Just kind of sit by yourself and kind of detox a little bit. And so we went back in the office and sat there and cried and cried more. And it was funny about my wife is she's very white and black. Like there's no gray. And she's like, well, you know what you need to do? And I said, yeah. And she goes, you need to cut your clients for training. And like instantly. And I was like, oh man, that's my blankie. That's my comfort. And like, I don't know, but Bree's like so purpose driven, so in with God. He's like, no, that's what, blah, blah. It's white and black. And so we kind of talked through it and go back into the class, and they went outside to talk about at the tables. There's a big outside
Everybody
patio.
was assigned to then talk about us and what they just experienced.
Yeah, what they experienced, right? And so
well, we're having our detox moment. Well, it was like 10, 15 minutes maybe in the office.
Yeah.
We come walking back into that room, not sure what we were going to walk into, to find everyone. We call it a walk and talk, or out to the tables. We go around these tables and have small group sessions to talk about things. And that was the topic of the conversation for like 20 minutes. Yeah. Meanwhile, Mark and I sat inside with our coach and just, he loved on us, and he also pep talked us. And then he also said, when you find your purpose and you have passion behind your purpose, that's the fuel to the fire. There's a reason why we had to experience that together.
Mm-hmm. I think the big thing that stood out to me, and I used to get caught up on, was the money, And he said, Mark, this is what really sunk in with me. He's like, the 500,000, it's not about the money. It's about the person you're going to become. It's about the person you're going to become to get that money. And he said, Bree, you're going to live with a guy that you have never noticed. And Mark, you're going to have things come out in your wife that you've never known, because she's been hiding, because you've suppressed those. Or Bree suppressed those because if she were honest with you, it'd probably wreck me. And so he's like, it's not about the money. He's like, it's about what kind of man takes to get to that money, and what it's going to do to you and change you in the good ways. And that was kind of an eye opener for me, because I always looked at it like, oh, it's all about the money, and it's like, no, it's about the man I become to get that money, and the things that I have to do, and the person I have to become, that I have to live it. You can't just talk about it. And that was pretty surreal for me, because I knew Bree was hurting. I knew she was tired. And I feel like when you've been married we've been married for 17 years, and it's like, when things aren't good, when people are tired, you kind of know, right? But I don't think I realized to the extent. Mm-hmm. And it's funny, because now I look at everything, like you look at your date nights, you look at how well you connect, you look at your sex life, you look at all those things, and you're like, oh my gosh, I won't say I wasted, that's not a bad word, but I've not made my life as good as I possibly can be. And as men, we always talk about, oh, well, she doesn't do this, she doesn't do that, blah, blah. But at the same time, I wasn't doing what I needed to do to have my wife show up wanting to be with me. And so we left the class, and he pulled us aside at the end, and he said, he goes, Mark, if you rise, if you do what you say you're going to do, the combination of both you rising at the same time, you guys are going to, he used the analogy of standing on a hill when you're old and you're about ready to die, and you look down, you see all these little lights, and they're moving around.
We are such a mess. And no, you're not on Punked watching this. This has really happened. This is real life.
All those lights.
Oh my God.
All those lights are the people that you touched because you followed your purpose. Thousands of lights on the valley floor. And it's like kind of crazy, because you don't ever think about it like that, right? You're saying, I'm going to go to work. I'm going to train my people. I'm going to do my client's hair. I'm going to have some good conversations, but that's it, Yeah, I want to help people, but whatever. And so, I feel like I've had life-changing moments in my life, and I've pivoted and done those things, but this was an experience my wife and I both experienced, which I don't think we've ever had that before. And we were vulnerable, and we were exposed.
And honest.
And what's amazing about being honest,
you're free.
You're free. And so, today I talked to my clients. I say this is the last month, and I was so nutted up. I was so nervous, and it's actually one of the most freeing days I've had in a long time. Mm-hmm. And but I know that we have to live it daily and every day.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I listened to this sermon the other day, and this pastor mentioned with every new beginning, it starts with an ending. And I let that sink in for a minute because I thought something has to die for something to rise. Mm-hmm. If it's your old self, if it's your old business, whatever it is getting in your way from rising, you have to let that go so you can grow. And I think for so many people, the struggle is the fear of the unknown. But when you realize your purpose, and there's so much passion there, God has you in the palm of his hand, and he's not letting go. Yeah. So all the things that are the fears and the mountains and the giants that you thought you could never overcome, he's got you. He's never failed you once. You're still here. Yep. And that's not by luck, you know?
And there's a saying, guys, if the king doesn't rise, the kingdom dies. Mm-hmm. And I'm at the point in my marriage that if I don't rise, my wife will most likely leave me. Not because I'm not doing a good job, but because I'm not rising in the way that she is. Mm-hmm. And so if the king doesn't rise, the kingdom dies.
Yeah.
And so that was another surreal moment, is taking my youngest out of her car seat into the grocery store, and I'm holding her, putting her in the basket, and I'm thinking to myself, like, what do I have to look like for my daughter to fly private in a private jet, have these things? And I'm not saying that you have to have those, but that was my thought, right? And I go, well, I got to become a totally different man in the way I think, the way I act, the way I
show up.
Yeah, show up. And I'm like, wouldn't I want my kids to see that? Wouldn't I want to show my daughter, like, dad showed up like that, and still have a great relationship, still have a good body, still have a good marriage, still have a good business? And it's like, yeah. Like, okay, well, that's what I need to do. And that's not for everyone, but just think about how you're showing up to your kids, but with your body, with your marriage, with your being with God, with your business. Is it all showing your kids this is the way to do it?
Well, and I think one thing we need to mention too is you came to realization in day 2 that what you thought your biggest struggle was your business. You're like, I just don't know which way I want to pivot. There's so many ways we can go with this. And the direction you were going wasn't bad. It wasn't wrong. Just wasn't what you were being called to do. And it really wasn't the business at the end of it that was not firing. It was the loss in identity in your being and being certain in that. And you had such clarity immediately in day 2 that, whoa, my focus shouldn't be my business. My focus should be my being. Oh. And when these all align, everything pushes, everything excels, everything moves forward. There's no doubt about that. So it takes digging deep to look at the root of the issue rather than just the surface. And once we realized that that was what was off, it was like everything else started to make sense. And it all started to align. Yeah. So I know for everybody, you know, people tell each other lies, tell yourself lies. Like, oh no, my being's really good, or my balance is really good. This is really good. But when you sit down and you write out the raw, hard facts, truths, and then you understand that so many of those things are fabricated because of feelings, and not even in a bad way. Society wants us to look photoshopped, you know? And if you're not, something's wrong with you. But in all reality, that's not what any of us look like. That's not what happens behind closed doors. Mark exposed a lot to you about our personal life that is relatable to probably a lot of you watching this, listening to this. I know we're not perfect. I stand in this class a lot of times and people look at me and I have something to say because what I have behind my words is integrity. I'm living this. I lived this. I can be real and raw with you because I've done this. And I'm not just talking. I have the fruit all around me to prove it. And so for me, it was coming to terms or grips with, I also have to show up differently. I also have to change. In order for Mark to be a different man, I have to be a different wife. And I know this sounds silly, but the last 2 mornings I've got up and I've done laundry. I don't do laundry in my household, guys, because I feel like I'm working all day. The last thing I want to come home is do that. I'd rather pay someone. And I can. So instead of paying someone, because Mark's cheap, he does it. That's a him problem, not a me problem. So people think, who's this girl? Who does she think she is as a wife not doing laundry? I know who I am as a wife. I know who this girl is. And she has boundaries, and one of them is not doing laundry. So I came back a different person. I did laundry yesterday. I know it sounds simple to you, but to me that's a big deal. It's time away from my kids folding laundry. I don't want to do that. But I know to show up differently, I have to. And for myself too, in my business, in my career, I had this vision and this drive to go one way, and God's just saying, that's great, that's cute, that's working out for you, that's still going to provide for your life, but we're going this way. So I'll continue to stand behind my chair and pour into the lives around me and transform hair on the outside. But what I'm really searching for is touching the inside. Mm-hmm. And that's been made real to me. I mean, in the last 3 years, really transforming my business to be solely like NBR, hair extensions. I've watched these transformations happen, and every day I let these women leave, and they feel great about themselves. They identify with the woman in the mirror that they maybe thought they never would know again. Or maybe she's somebody that she never even thought she could be. And then what? I let them leave, and I feel like, but I wasn't done touching their soul. So when you know your soul purpose, moving forward, it makes it a whole lot easier. And you're feeling, or I guess your purpose is more fueled in that certainty. And it's not so difficult to move forward and jump past the obstacles that you fear because you're living in scarcity.
Yeah. And I mean, you're living with purpose. You're living what God's called you to live. And when you do that, there's a whole different vibe. There's not many people that I've met that can walk into a room and just stop it. Like you're like, shit, that person has it. I don't know what it is. They got it. Mm-hmm. And I've met a couple people in my life, and my wife's one of them. Mm-hmm. My pastor, JR, is one of them. This guy, Garrett. You can walk into a room and just, no matter what kind of vibe it is, he'll flip it. He knows it. Mm-hmm. If they're confident in themselves, they're confident in Jesus, they're confident in what they know, and they don't care because they know that the only person they care about is God. They'll do things their wife won't agree with, and that's what he told me. He's like, Mark, you're going to do things in life that your wife is not going to like. And he's like, you got to be okay with that. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, because God's called you to do it.
Yeah. And
so that has probably been one of the things that I realized too, is like, I want to have that confidence. I want to have that certainty. When you walk into a room, you're like, oh, that guy's got it. And so,
and it's funny because you buy all the things, right? You get the saucy haircut, wear the shoes. It's all superficial. And once you realize that it's not actually the hair, the shoes, all the things that matter, but the way you show up is the confidence you have in yourself, that's way more attractive than all the other things. To me, anyways.
Yeah, it's when you got it, you got it.
Yeah.
And so That's what I'm striving in life for, striving to have life in abundance in all aspects, body, being, balance, and business. And what's amazing is we have the tools now to help you get there. And the guy Garrett, the reason we went to the class is he had all these tools and he was holding them. And God said, nope, they're not yours, they're mine.
Yep.
Give them away.
He said, give them back to me.
Give them back to me. And so Garrett goes, okay, so I'm going to teach you guys. I'm giving you all the tools. You have to go be yourself. You have to be authentic. You have to go on podcasts and cry. I just didn't. He didn't say that, but be authentic. And so what's amazing about this is if you're like, oh my gosh, like this is me, like this hit me right between the head, right? Or the four eyes or whatever, or the eyes. Shoot us a DM on Instagram, Blonde by Bree or Mark Country Training on Instagram. Shoot us a DM if you want more information, some more clarity. But we have all the tools that you don't need Bree and I. Bree and I are the facilitators of it, right? You will do the work and you will experience life-changing by doing the work yourself. Because when you do it yourself,
you'll actually do it.
You actually do it.
You'll actually see the change.
And you don't go backwards. Mm-hmm. So if you want more info, shoot us a message. If you got our phone number, shoot us a message. Go to Blonde by Bree at Instagram or Mark Country Training. Shoot me a DM. We'd be happy to talk with you, give you more clarity, give you more.
And I think one thing we've realized through this, and just even talking about our experience since we've been home, we've only been home, 48 hours?
Yeah.
Is there are so many more people like us in the pit, in the rut, that you would never expect. And it's opened my eyes that this isn't just for people who need long blonde hair. Yeah. This isn't just for people who need accountability with their bodies. This is for all God's people. And we all deserve to live life in abundance as God promised us. But with that comes work. And it's not just handed to you. It's doing the things day in and day out. And there is a guarantee for success if you do the work. It is impossible to not see a difference and a change in your life if you are doing the work. I can tell you that right now. And it might seem like little things chipping away at the block every day. But eventually, guess what? You get there. And we are walking proof that you get there. So I didn't think in 2019 I'd be sitting in a podcast with my husband, maybe in divorce court with a really, really good attorney.
Her dad as the attorney and just taking me to the ringers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But no, I know that this is possible for anyone because Mark did it. He did it. And he makes me look perfect, and I'm not. I fall short every day. Mm-hmm. But there is one thing I do know who I am in Christ, and that comes with certainty, and that's not something that I take lightly. And I try and display that every day to my children. That's the most important thing. And I know we're going to sound crazy to a lot of people, but you know what? This is the truth. It's not about what you think. And even listening to this podcast, there's something that we said that struck a chord with you. Because everybody's human. And everybody feels this way in some shape or form. So with that heaviness today, we're going to leave you with episode 10 coming up next.
Yep,
and
next
we're
week.
going to drop some big bombs. If
Hopefully,
this wasn't enough.
Yeah, hopefully I don't cry in the next podcast. But
or maybe you do.
Episode.
Maybe there's a whole sea of men out there that need to cry.
Yep.
You know.
So, all right, you guys have a good night. Again, if you're on YouTube, hit subscribe. By the way, if you're on YouTube, sorry for the camera. We're filming this by ourselves right now, and the camera shut off about maybe 80% of the way through, so turn it back on. So bear with us on that. On the podcast, you really don't know. And the pausing is not my stuttering. I was crying during this episode if you didn't realize. So tune in next time. Until then, have a great day and night, and I'll talk to you later.